Royal Enfield have just been caught out testing a Himalayan 650. This is a big deal as a lot of people have really been looking forward to this bike. But we've got a lot of questions. Is this going to be a 650? How much power is it going to make? There's rumors of it being an 850. What are the specifications? Who's the bike for? And is this really going to be off-road capable? There's so many questions about this bike, so let's just dive straight into it.
Start it up.
The obvious one here is the 650 motor. We have seen this in the Interceptor, the GT, the Super Meteor, and the Shotgun. No surprises there that this is the same engine. I think that's a really good thing because I love that little motor. The sound of that motor on the pipe with a good set of exhaust is just music to my ears. So love it that they're using that engine. Presumably it will make the same 47 horsepower and 52 Newton meters of torque of all the other models in the lineup, though we will talk about the potential for more power and a bored out engine size later in this video. But for now, let's assume that that is the same 650 that we've seen in all the other 650s in Royal Enfield's lineup. Now we move into the new features that we can tell from these pictures. So the big one that stands out to me, and is a standout in the 650 range as well, this is a first, is that it looks like it has dual front discs. So this will have superior braking, presumably, over all the other 650s in the range. So that's really exciting for the 650 range. So pretty big deal there. Now let's talk about the suspension, because that is also a fairly big deal. Now, to my eyes, this looks very similar to the suspension used on the Super Meteor as well as the Himalayan 450. The difference here is if you look at this image zoomed in, you can see that those front forks have adjustability, which is a big deal for Royal Enfield, not in the motorcycle world, but for Royal Enfield. To my knowledge, this might be a very first for Royal Enfield. I don't think they've had adjustable front forks on any of their modern motorcycles that they're offering at the moment. This has a monoshock rear suspension setup. The wheel sizes, to my eye, that looks like a 19-inch front end. Impossible to tell what the rear is, but with a 19, presumably they'll have a 17-inch rear. Now, I could be wrong, that could be a 21, but I do feel fairly confident in saying that that's a 19-inch front, which should suggest to you the amount of off-road capability that Royal Enfield have in mind. This is going to be more of an adventure tourer, but we'll talk more about that later. The other thing you can see here in these images is the upswept exhaust. Now the question is, in this image, does that exhaust get routed underneath the engine or to the side? Obviously, us off-road riders, we want that exhaust routed as high as possible to keep it out of harm's way. Let's talk about the fairing on this. This is the first Himalayan that looks like it has an actual fairing on it with an integrated windscreen, like a traditional adventure bike. Traditionally, Royal Enfield have gone for the single circular headlight with absolutely no fairing and a windscreen, but it does look like a fully integrated windscreen and fairing to keep you out of the wind and out of the elements, which is an interesting departure from its previous models. Now, hopefully, despite that more modern fairing, they're able to keep some of that retro style. And I think they could pull it off, especially if they stick with that round headlight, like a mini Norden 901, which I think could be a great look. But I'd love to know your thoughts as well, so chuck them down below. And the last exciting tidbit is a few media outlets are predicting that we could be seeing this on showroom floors as early as next year, so that's 2025. That's basically the specifications that we can really tell from these images, other than the instrument clusters, which are obviously going to be the carbon copy of what's on the Himalayan 450s. The first option is to say, yes, of course it is a possibility, and we really can't tell from the images. So it's a kind of a Schrodinger's cat type of deal. It's both a 650 and an 850 until the thing is revealed and we find out for ourselves. But let's go down the 850 rabbit hole and see if we can figure out whether that is plausible or not. We've got the evidence of Royal Enfield producing that one-off adventure bike of an 850 version of the 650. So Royal Enfield can do it, they know they can do it, and they've got a decent horsepower bump. So it's certainly plausible that they would follow through on that, as a lot of people are always wanting bigger and better and more power. And it's certainly in the realm of possibility that Royal Enfield could just straight out of the gate release this as a Himalayan 850 and shock everyone. That really could be a big news headline. However, My personal feeling is that's not the way it's going to play out. I think this will most likely be the 650 as we already know it, with the 47 horsepower and 52 Newton meters of torque that we see in all the other 650s in Royal Enfield's lineup. What exactly makes me say that though with any shred of confidence? We've really seen them, just like everyone else, embrace this modular platform of the modern era. And we've seen it start with the GT and the Interceptor, move into the Super Meteor, and now the Shotgun 650 as we get more and more variants of the 650. To me, it really makes sense for them to then release a Himalayan 650 to go alongside the Himalayan 450 and all the other 650s in the lineup. This requires the least amount of R&D. The other one that makes me think that this bike isn't going to be an 850 straight out of the gate is profits. Royal Enfield will miss out on a big slice of the learner pie. A lot of countries, including Australia, places like the UK as well, have a tiered licensing system, and these 650s make it in under the requirements. It's generally about 650 cc's and under, and you have to make less than 48 horsepower or thereabouts. So those people can ride this bike. So that's a big slice of the pie that Royal Enfield would immediately miss out on if they made it a bigger capacity, higher performance engine. Obviously, it'd be easier to just stick with the 650 because they already have it. They don't need to change anything about it, and it's also still learner legal. So it's a win-win for Royal Enfields. But that doesn't make me think that there won't be a bigger capacity 850-ish or thereabouts size version of this Himalayan down the line, or any of the 650s that you see. Royal Enfield can't help but notice how popular these 650 twins are in the West. And in the Western market, we love our bigger bikes. And I'm sure it's reached Royal Enfield's ears that a lot of people would love to see an even bigger capacity Royal Enfield 650. But I do think that we will see the first 850s being some of the other bikes, like the Interceptor, the GT, the Super Meteor. Those are the bikes I think we'll see the 850 motor in first before we see the Himalayan. That's the playbook that they've used for these 650s, so it makes sense that if they were going to be doing an 850, that they would follow the same playbook along the lines, because they've already have a well-established market for the 650 road bikes. Then they release the 850. Not only are they still going to have a bike that's available in the learner graduated systems for those road bikes, but now you've got an 850 that people have been crying out for, so people are going to want to upgrade from their 650s, and the people that haven't really been convinced by the 650's power suddenly have a reason to get the Royal Enfield as well. It makes a lot of sense to do that for the road bikes because you don't have the 650 yet of the Himalayan, so why throw your ace of spades straight out onto the market, whereas you can do the 650 Himalayan, offer it to the learners, and then in a few years when you've got all the 850s on the road range under offer and people have snapped up the 650 Himalayans and they're riding them, then you drop the 850, so you get people upgrading to the 850 who have maybe been learners looking for a bigger version of the bike, or people just holding out wanting a bigger version of the Himalayan. It makes a lot more marketing sense to do it that way. So that's why I believe this will be a 650 to start with. Now let's talk about what the purpose of this bike for. Is it going to be off-road capable? Is it going to be an adventure tourer? What is Royal Enfield trying to achieve here? And who's this bike best suited for? I think another real telltale sign here is the other spec of it presumably being a 19-inch front wheel. That's a good indicator of where it will sit in the off-road world. It's going to be more of an adventure tourer. Royal Enfield's core ethos is making modern classics. They do a fantastic job of making a beautiful looking, beautiful sounding, but basic motorcycle, engine and two wheels, and you go and have fun. And I see no reason why they would change that for the Himalayan 650. I think you've got to consider where the 450 Himalayan sits into all of this as well. I think the Royal Enfield 650 sitting along the Himalayan 450 is another reason why this 650 is going to be more of the adventure tourer of the two, because the Himalayan 450 is clearly going to be the more off-road capable. The Himalayan 650 is going to be more of the adventure tourer here, with that twin cylinder, smoother motor, more power, more weight for stability out on the open road. It's just the logical conclusion to go to that this will definitely be an adventure tourer when compared to the Himalayan 450. The other thing to consider here is the weight of the motorcycle. We don't know the weight of this 650 Himalayan, but we do know the weight of all the other 650s. And I think the one to base our case off here is the Interceptor, as that's the standard of the range, which comes in at roughly 198, 200 kilos dry. and about 217 to 218 kilograms curb weight as quoted by Royal Enfield, if the manufacturers can be trusted at all when they're listing weights. So that's not a lightweight motorcycle at all. And you've got to consider on top of that, this is going to have a fairing and it's also probably going to have a bigger tank. Those things at least are going to mean a heavier curb weight at the least, if not a heavier dry weight as well. So it's definitely not going to be in the lightweight category, and I don't think Royal Enfield are going to, nor do they need to try and do that, because there's niches in this market and Royal Enfield understand their niche. They're making this bike as the gentleman's adventure tourer, in my opinion, meant for exploring the back roads at your own pace. But I'd love to know your thoughts. Are you looking forward to this 650 Himalayan? Are you frustrated that it's potentially not going to be as lightweight and off-road capable as you might have been hoping for? Or are you happy to see Royal Enfield stick to what they know? Do you think they will release it straight away as an 850? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so throw them down below. If you liked the video, hit that like button. Thanks for sticking with me to the end. Don't forget to stay shiny side up, and I'll see you in the next one.